LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I
filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though. I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
On December 12th, Disney Plus invites you to go behind the scenes with Taylor Swift in an exclusive 6-episode docuseries.
I wanted to give something to the fans that they didn't expect.
The only thing left is to close the book.
The end of an era. And don't miss Taylor Swift, The Eras Tour, the final show, featuring for the first time the Tortured Poets Department. Streaming December 12th, only on Disney Plus.
Adobe Acrobat Studio, your team's home base. Collaborate within a shared PDF space. You've got your docs, your plans, your specs, and then invite the crew to build what's next. They talk up the teamwork. Here's an updated render. They think that this design could be a contender. And when somebody wonders what's the next step, AI helps you finish the rest. Bolts are tight, now your plan's refined. Run a smoother business when you're all aligned. Do that with Acrobat. Learn more at adobe.com/do-that-with-Acrobat.
Hello everyone, I'm Chris Wynn. Welcome to Haway, the podcast. And we're still in the fallout of the defeat at Port Vale in the FA Cup. That has had everyone scratching their head and asking questions of the manager and players in one way or another. So we thought that was a good opportunity to ask you lovely people to send in your questions for us to discuss and for our experts to answer today. Once again, those experts were unavailable, so we managed to get a couple of the lads involved. And first up, it is the Oracle. That is Gavin Henderson. Hello, Gav.
Hello. I wasn't expecting it to come to me there first. I thought it was going to be our other guest on the show. Good, mate. Yeah, really good, considering the Sunday that we all had, and it wasn't fun, but we're here ready to talk about it a little bit more and some, aren't we?
Yeah, well, you see, mate, you got out of it now because on the last pod we talked on the preview, you were all worried and getting a bit stressed about potentially having 2 trips to Wembley in a few weeks, weren't you?
I was, but I also kind of foresaw what was going to happen as well. Towards the end, you were getting a bit worried because we were getting a bit negative, weren't you? And I was saying, well, this is a potential banana skin, and you just know if that mag scores, he's going to celebrate like Alan Shearer. And wouldn't you know it, what did he do? They're so predictable, aren't the Geordies? They've got knee crack, all exactly the same as each other, which is why they've only got one thing on their minds when they play Sunderland, and that's that dick wearing the wanker's hat. So, yes, unfortunately, I wasn't very happy to be right about that one.
Yeah, all it needed was a mag in the crowd, and we'd done the League One bingo, I think, and we'd got a full house, hadn't we? But that was the only thing remaining. But anyway, also joining us is another Oracle, and hopefully someone who can help put our cup exit into context, because we have Andrew Smithson with us. Hello, Andrew.
Hello, mate. Yes, time travel is possible, because I think we were all taken back to the League One days at the weekend, weren't we? It was like a right flashback in time. Yeah, it was a weird day.
Yeah, well, I did the match reaction straight after the final whistle, and Gav did the podcast with Tom White to go through it, and Martin as well. I mean, we haven't heard your thoughts on the game yet, Andrew. So, a lot has been said, but what did you make of it all?
Ooh, there's a question.
First question out the gate.
Yeah. I didn't see it coming. I really didn't expect that. Yeah, I could have foreseen Port Vale winning it if a lot of things had gone their way. But I don't even think they were we didn't even push them hard, I don't think. They were cutting the shots of fans in the crowd, biting their nails, and I was thinking, well, you don't need to worry about that, because the longer the game went on, it became quite clear to me that we were just not at the races, and we were not gonna score. It was such a peculiar day. The type of performance that we've almost banished from our memory And it just seemed like this kind of like slow car crash. You could see what was about to happen. And like Gav says, you just knew he was going to do the whole Alan Shearer stick, but just nobody seemed able to stop it. And then it's full time and everyone's just looking at each other thinking, what's happened? I think there was a genuine sense of shock. So I was disappointing to say the least. And I was going to say at least I've got me health, but I'm suffering with cold as well. So that just,
No.
just an absolute write-off of a weekend, sadly.
Well, it just adds to that smooth voice of yours, Andrew. That call, that's all it does, mate. Don't worry about that. But it does lead us straight into the game because, unsurprisingly, Gav, most of the questions that we've had in are about the Port Vale game, and I think that quite a lot of them have been about how we approach the game. And look, a lot's been said. Andrew kind of touched on it there. I mean, the first one from Cliffy D came in, and he said, "Did we take Port Vale lightly? And if if any team should know how difficult League One teams can be, it's ourselves," he says. And, we talked about it before the game about the likes of Luke O'Nien, talking about how difficult these places are to go to. But the conversation around his mistake was around the reaction to his mistake, where they were just laughing and chuckling. And it wasn't, let's say we made that mistake against a Man City or an Arsenal where we needed to wake up. Would that have been a different reaction?
I think it's all right saying all of these things, like, we've been there before, and, talking about the narrative was all about the pitch leading into the game. So nobody can pretend they weren't expecting a difficult surface to play on. Yet it felt like we hadn't done any preparation whatsoever, and it was really disappointing. I think I made reference to this when I did the pod with Tom White and Martin, but even Robbie Savage on commentary, he's watching us pass the ball around the back four, and he's going, "What on earth are Sunderland doing? Do they not realise what they're playing on? They can't do that. They're going to make a mistake." And you would have to say it was from playing around at the back that we started to make problems for ourselves. And then 09 does that thing where he's obviously not trying to score in his own goal, but it was all a result of going backwards, wasn't it? And playing back to the goalkeeper and playing back into midfield. And there was 3 corners subsequently from that point, but I just felt like we weren't streetwise enough. Like at that point, after 5-10 minutes where you're knocking the ball around and it's bobbling up and people are struggling to get a hold of it and it's not moving on the surface very well, that's when your experienced players have to go, right, let's not do this so much. We need to cut any chance of making mistakes out, and that has to come from the side as well. And I can only presume it didn't, because we just kept doing the same things over and over. And it wasn't until Ballard went forward late in the game that we started going direct and back to front, which is what we should have been doing from the first couple of minutes. It was really, really annoying. I can't make any excuse for it. The pitch was poor, but it was the same for both teams. And I don't know if you've seen it, Chris, but there's been I think the goal scorer Ben Wayne, he said in his post-match interview on TNT, he said, "We love this pitch. It's our pitch." They really owned it, and I saw some of their players making the same comments on social media. It's almost like, right, all everyone's doing is talking about this pitch, so let's just own it. Let's make it work for us. And they did. And it almost felt like for Sunderland, we went, "Oh, what's this? No, this isn't what we used to playing on." All the things I talked about ahead of the game, the fact that the changing rooms are smaller and colder and cramped and the facilities aren't quite the same as what we used to. And, players like the young lads in particular who've never really played outside the top 2 leagues coming up against rough and ready defenders who are going to just kick you. Because how many times did their captain go straight through my ender and he was rolling around on the floor, or the same happening to Angulo and Talby? These lads just didn't look prepared to me at all. And I just don't understand that at all. Because for me, it was the most obvious thing about this game going into it. Everybody knew exactly how Port Vale would play, exactly what the pitch would be like, exactly how things would go if it wasn't going in our favour. And we just looked blind to it. Like we hadn't even give it a second thought. And that was why I was pissed off. Because I can take getting beat. I can't take being underprepared and watching my team work less hard than the opposition.
Yeah, and we can't move on, by the way, before I have a comparison between Robbie Savage and a clock face in terms of being right, by the way, before we go on the next bit. But Andrew, yeah, I mean, look, Gav's already getting wound up. We're only a few minutes into the pod, and he's already getting going. But Elliot does ask. He says, "How infuriating was the Port Vale performance?" And I wrote in Monday's editorial, and you're a similar vintage to me, Andrew. Not giving too much away there, but Sunderland have reached the quarterfinal of the FA Cup 4 times in my lifetime. And these things are life events. I remember when I was young, and I remember shop windows having all the rosettes and all the stuff for the 92 FA Cup final. And I vividly remember it. And I remember it almost, as being one of the biggest days where I saw Sunderland kind of come to life almost. And these things are huge in people's lives. And as Elliot asks, how infuriating was that performance?
Oh, massively so. I was really cross and stunned by it. As you say, cup runs can be memorable, and generations of fans always talk about the special cup runs. And I'm sorry, but for a club of our size, our cup form in general is disgraceful. This is the second team from League One to knock us out of the cup this season. It was Huddersfield in the Carabao earlier on in the season. And I dare say if we go back through the record books for the last few seasons, we're regularly being given preferable draws that on paper you'd think, oh, I'm quite happy with that, I'll take that. And we've blown them. I am cross about it. I hadn't realised until today either that I think the weekend of the quarterfinals is I want to say it's Easter weekend. I'm not sure about that, but there's no other league games scheduled.
Yeah, so we've got a 3-week gap after the Mags game now.
Well, that feeling is going to come back and annoy me again, because then when I'm sat there with nothing to do on a weekend, I'll be like, oh, and there's Blum Port Vale going to having their big day. So it was infuriating, and like Gav said, everybody knew about the pitch. We were all talking about it, so it's not like they turned up and they were shocked by it. The 09 pass back, everyone said, what's he doing there? I wonder if the pitch has played something in his mind there, which is why he's tried to lift it rather than play it on the deck in case it bobbles. I don't know if I'm just second guessing there and making excuses.
But for me, Andrew, just to put in there slightly, for me, the actual back pass isn't the issue. It's him receiving the ball facing forwards and turning around and running towards his own goal. And I think that was a symptom of the mentality.
Well, yes, that's a fair point. And the way the back pass was and what it led to had a comical side to it. Yeah, but the underlying issue, like you say, is we were ponderous on the ball. As well, that's another factor in Sunderland's play. We don't like just putting it into Rosette if you're in trouble. There's been a couple of times now where we've lost the ball because it's drummed into the players to keep possession. Going back to what Gav said and about how it was only towards the end when Ballard went up front that we decided to launch it. We actually had a brilliant chance in the first half where I think it was Alderete has just booted it through the middle, and suddenly their defence has parted and Diarra's kind of side foot lobbed it over the goalkeeper and not hit the target. Now, how do you look at that and think, oh, we'll not try that tactic again? Do you know what I mean? It just seems such a straightforward way of opening them up, and we didn't try it. So yeah, infuriating is the word. This should have been a day where we were all sat here laughing and joking and saying, hey, I can't wait for this draw. I honestly thought we had a chance of winning this competition. And they've just gone, and this has just completely knocked us sideways.
Yeah, that's what supporting Sunderland's all about. Just when you're feeling good about it, it kicks you between the legs, doesn't it? But just to build off that, Gav, because we've got another question from Ryan Evans who kind of builds on that attitude discussion that we're talking about, because he says we went in that game with the attitude of we are Premier League and basically we're automatically going to roll you over. But he asks, the question is, was that the attacking options or the conservative tactics that made Sunday happen. So he's asking, I suppose, did the way that we approached the game tactically, impact our mentality in the game, that we weren't going out to really win the game and kind of win it early on with attacking play and getting it wide and doing all of that? I mean, was that part of it?
Yeah, possibly. I think if that my ender header goes in early doors, it's a different game, isn't it? So these things, these small moments in games matter. And I think the nervousness crept in very quickly after that point, because everyone's expecting Sunderland to win the game, and the longer it goes on, it suits Port Vale. I think after like half an hour, the commentators, I think it was the goalkeeper. He went down for his scheduled break, didn't he? Where everyone then had to have a little bit of a huddle and get a drink and stuff. And it was the commentators then were talking, kind of reviewing the first half an hour, and they were saying, well, Port Vale would be over the moon with that,
By the way, just very quickly, Johnny pointed it out where Robbie Savage nearly gave it away, that he tells his keeper to go down.
Yeah. But after that point, it just kept growing from that point, really, that belief that Port Vale had. So the longer it went on without Sunderland scoring, it suited them. And I think it was, you mentioned not just the attacking play, but the moment where O'Nien played it back at the goalkeeper, for instance. There just wasn't the same sort of fervour about us, maybe the same sort of zip that we tend to get in games, and I wonder how much that's down to just being the favourite, because we're just not used to it. Sometimes when we're the underdog, we take bigger risks and we're more comfortable sitting in, and it suits the players we've got. Whereas in this game, and it was the same with Oxford, and it was probably it probably hasn't happened too much this season, really, where we've went in as favourites, but we don't ever seem to look as comfortable when we're the favourite, and the attacking play really suffered. And I thought, like, we need to get more shots away. We needed to have more of a go. Yet all we seemed to be doing was playing it safe. And it was players like Talby and Lefay who were the worst for it, who I would say are two of the biggest risk takers in the team. We've seen it with Talby. He scored some great goals this season where he's just took it on and shot. And Lefay isn't a risky player, I wouldn't say. Risk-averse player, sorry, but he was being very safe. There was just lots of safe passing, nobody wanting to make a mistake, nobody wanting to be the person who people could point at and go, well, he was terrible because he kept giving the ball away. It was just like a very nervous display. And again, I mentioned this on the pod we did with Tom White, but after half time, there was that Talby shot where it wasn't a great chance, but at least he had a shot straight after half time, and I was going, oh, well, there we go then. It looks like we've had a bit of a mother's meeting at half time, and the lads have decided, well, if we get within 20 yards a goal, we'll have a bang. But then we didn't really do it again after that. And I just think sometimes maybe this is a symptom of the modern game, because the coaching is the biggest aspect of the game now, isn't it? Individual quality and things, you don't really come to the fore as much in the modern game. It's all about coaching and tactics and things. And I sometimes wonder, like, are some of the players overcoached to the point they're scared to take risks? Because like, back in the day, like I'm talking 15, 20 years ago, if the game wasn't going in your favour, you would have players on the pitch who would just go, bollocks to this, I'm just going to have a shot. Like Craig Gardner wasn't a great footballer for Sunderland, but the amount of times he would just wallop one from nowhere. And I just think, I can't remember anybody doing that for years at Sunderland. It just doesn't happen anymore. So like, is it being coached? Are these players so overcoached that when it comes down to moments like this where you want them just to show a bit of individual quality, it's not in their makeup to do it? Because that's all that was missing, really. If we'd had I looked at the stats before, we had more shots than they did, loads more shots, but it didn't feel like it to me. It didn't feel like we had loads of opportunities. And I was just dying for us to just go shoot on sight, have 10 minutes in the game, just have 10 minutes in the game where it's like, right, if you get within 25 yards, have a bang. And just to feed off that. And I think this was a point one of my mates made, but I'm going to steal it because it was a good point. That was probably the type of game where you could have done with a Romain Mundle, because he's one of the players we've got who does that. He'll cut inside and have a shot, and it doesn't always come off. But we needed somebody to do that. And it wasn't coming from Angulo, it wasn't coming from Talby, it wasn't coming from Mayenda, it wasn't coming from Lefay. Isidore came on off the bench and he might as well not been on the pitch because he didn't touch the ball. We were just lacking somebody who fancied taking the game by the scruff of the neck. And I think that's probably a criticism we need to take forward beyond this season. I think, if anything, we've been a little bit too safe at times when we need people to take risks. And I think if we're going to kick on next season, we need more risk takers.
Yeah, well, people are looking for reasons, of course. And there's another one that's coming from Joe Braun, Andrew, with another potential, I don't know whether it's an excuse or a reason why that result against Port Vale might have happened. But he asks, is it too easy to blame the team not being up for it on Xhaka not being on the field? He asks, is it a concern that we seem a different team without him? He also adds, he can't wait to see everyone in Nashville. But maybe in the Premier League, but you're taking on Port Vale from League One and you're putting Premier League players out on the pitch.
Exactly. And I mean, Diarra, AFCON winner, Gertruda, international player who's been spoken about as a potential for the World Cup. Alderete. There's loads of players in that team who've shown themselves to have the ability to produce it at a higher level. They are highly driven individuals. So I'd be sorely disappointed if Xhaka's absence was one of the main reasons behind that. I mean, don't get us wrong. We are struggling with injuries in general. And in terms of Premier League games going forward, I can't wait for the likes of Broby and Mukiele to come back. But on that performance there and on that game against Port Vale, it wasn't like we'd just thrown together a load of kids who'd not played, didn't have much match sharpness in their legs. There were virtually all lads who've had regular football of late and have worked alongside each other. I don't think Xhaka's absence would explain it. A little bit worrying. Maybe I'm just getting myself a bit stressed now. I try and keep my feet on the ground after a defeat. A little bit worrying that he wasn't brought on until when he was, because I think we could all see the way the game was going, and I can't really think of a reason why Xhaka wasn't introduced.
Before you move on, Andrew, can anyone get their head around why that might have been? Because I can't.
No, I can't. But that's why I'm saying it's a little bit of a worry. Apologies if I'm putting two and two together and getting five. You would. The only reason why you wouldn't have brought him on sooner was if he wasn't quite match ready, and there might be an injury, or maybe they're concerned about his ankle on that pitch. But that would be that would be a bigger problem if that was the reason.
Just because we've heard Le Bris talk about timelines and like we've got a timeline for this and we've got a time. Were we so wedded to that we wouldn't even take a risk bringing him on? I just don't get it.
Well, once I'm going to throw to you actually, Gav, because we did get a question on it from LD, and he asked the question: was bringing Xhaka on for only 10 minutes the clearest indication that Régis Le Bris didn't seriously care for the cup?
Again, we need the full context, really. Like, is Xhaka carrying a problem that is maybe more serious than we're aware of? Possibly. I think when you looked at the bench, there was nobody else, was there, really? I mean, you could have brought some of the kids on. Me and Martin talked about this on the pod with Tom White. I wouldn't have been totally against bringing Garigussian and Abdullahi on just for the crack. Get them on. Young lads who've got something to prove. There was no reason why we shouldn't. Like, we didn't take I think that the theme of this conversation is going to be just about how risk averse we were. We didn't take risks at all. Like, we should have just been brave and took chat. Like, it wasn't like a league game where that would be an absurd suggestion to bring on a couple of kids who've never kicked the ball for the first team. We were getting beat, so why not? Just do it. And again, I think we just need to know a little bit more about Xhaka, really. How serious is the problem that he's? I've got a feeling, he's carrying something that needs more work than we realise, and he's actually going to be managed through the rest of the season because he played, if you remember, virtually every minute up until his injury, really, until he got injured and he was out. So is this something where it's probably going to need surgery in the summer and we're managing it? Is this something where like a young man might be able to deal with it, but he's 33 knocking on 34 and has to be looked after a little bit more. Otherwise, it could be more serious. We don't know. I think that's the problem. I think we could do with some clarity on that to try and get our heads around all these things.
Gav, he'll not want surgery because of the World Cup.
Well,
sadly, so
it could all be a factor, Andrew, couldn't it? Yeah,
so
it could be.
that 3-week layoff that we've discussed might be a time when we do get more answers on that and we get a bit of clarity as to Xhaka. Just before we move on, if you don't mind, I'll just pull us back to something we were saying earlier, and Gav used the phrase risk averse and potential reasons as to why we were off colour. I think a big factor for us, and this is something that in the past I wasn't too troubled about, but it's happening too often. We struggle when we're allowed the majority of possession. That is a concern for going forward for me. It's not just personnel. It's not just opposition or the pitch or whether Le Bris takes the cup seriously or this, that, and the other. Invariably, our poorer performances are when we have the ball and we're not sure what to do. You know how you said about, do we struggle being the favourites in the game? I don't even necessarily think it's the favourites. I think it's when we're expected to do the running and make things happen.
Yeah. Well, look, I think we'll come on to that because before we get into the kind of our style of play, because we had a lot of questions on that. Plus, we had some questions on the manager's future, which we'll get into. I think it's time for a quick break. So we'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teen accounts.
At Sports Social Podcast Network, we know you love great sports podcasts. That is why you're listening to this show. But do you also make a great sports podcast? Sports Social Podcast Network has teamed up with the Charles Tyrwhitt Sports Book Awards to launch a brand new awards category, Sports Podcast of the Year. From sharp analysis to documentary storytelling to the biggest voices in sport, we're looking to honour the shows that shape conversation, connect with audiences and showcase creativity, storytelling and production. You have until March 31st to enter, and full details can be found at sportsbookawards.com.
Find the biggest voices in sport on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Check out The Paddock and the Pavilion, the only podcast covering horse racing and cricket. With me, Stephen Wallace. My aim is to bring you inspiring stories across two sports, inside the paddock and the pavilion. And over the next couple of weeks, I've got several episodes based around the Cheltenham Festival to keep you enthralled. So if you enjoy thoughtful conversations, sporting insight, and stories you won't hear anywhere else, search for The Paddock and the Pavilion wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
And welcome back to Haway the podcast. And I think we went over the Port Vale game in a little bit of detail over the last few pods and some of the questions that you brought in. But we will get into a little bit of style of play, not just with the Port Vale game, but we've had some questions kind of about our general style, which I think was highlighted in that cup game. And we'll start off with a question from Roy of the Rokers. He asks, and I'll start with you, Andrew, because he asks, it's clear our first season was hard to beat to stay in the league, but if we are signing new creative players into the squad, where are the gaps to make us more adventurous? Will a new striker surely be brought in, and can the current midfield be effective if all remain fit? So it's this thing, looking at the squad, Régis Le Bris talked about that quartet that he likes in his midfield. And we've got Brian Broby, who looks fantastic up top. So where are the gaps that if we do make this team more adventurous and more attacking, how do we go about it?
Well, that quartet, that midfield group, we were missing one of them. We were missing Siddiqui. And again, he's another huge loss to us. I can't imagine Hume would have been too impressed had he been on the pitch. He might have had a bit more, I don't know, get up and go about him. So even there straight away, just getting Siddiqui back could help towards that. Broby, for me, is the main man. He's brilliant. Any strikers we sign for me would be to either work off him or be a backup rather than to replace him. Unless, of course, somebody sensational becomes available. Yeah, I don't know where the gaps are. I think we constantly end up going back to these question marks over the wingers. But is it an attitude and a tactical thing rather than personnel? I don't know. I mean, let's not forget as well, I am gutted about Port Vale and I'm cross. But I don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater. We are still having a great season. And just a few days beforehand, we were brilliant at Leeds. We were tactically perfect and we soaked everything up and we hit them and we got the points. When we play like that and when the game's set up like that, we are phenomenal and we don't need to change anything. It is just what we do in these other games and how we do if we want to progress. That's the question. And I think it's as much changing the mindset of some of the players as it is bringing in replacements. Because we've got talented lads there. Lefay can unlock a defence, you know?
You know something, right? You've kind of already seen this season where when you add players to a squad, it completely changes the way other players play. So a year ago, I might have doubted Dan Ballard and Trey Hume could have played Premier League football because they were playing in the Championship at that point and Ballard wasn't even really getting a game for us. And you surround him with good players and all of a sudden it brings out different qualities in his game. So I think it would be a bit extreme to suggest that we've got players who are incapable of playing a more attacking style, because I think we definitely do have players who can do it. I just think when it comes to the summer, there will be changes. Players who maybe aren't making the grade or want more football than we're able to give them will move on. We'll replace them with players maybe with different qualities. You know, Angulo in January replaced Adingra, and they couldn't be more different as wingers, really, could they? When you think about it, like Angulo is defensively very, very good and works hard where Adingra didn't have them qualities. So that's kind of what you do. You work your squad out over the course of a season, and then you bring in players who are maybe more suited to the way you're playing. And I think you know, you look at Talby and you look at Angulo when he signed. I was told when I did that interview with the Belgian footy expert Elijah Michels, he told me that Angulo's qualities were in creating chances. We haven't really seen that from him yet. So that would suggest it's down to a style of play, wouldn't it? More so than his ability. Obviously, he can create chances. He's scored goals and created goals in Belgium this season.
Yeah. We did get a quick question from Chris Gav on that point, and I'll put it to you now because you've got on the topic. He actually asked, is Angulo better than Adingra?
We haven't seen enough of him yet, but I think
Did we see enough of Adingra?
Well, I would suggest that, you know, maybe not, but Adingra got his chance because of AFCON, didn't he? So all of those players disappeared. He was the only player over that side other than Mundell, and he never took his chance. I mean, he scored one goal against Leeds, but that was it. So I would say he had more of an opportunity than Angulo's had at this point. And Angulo's younger as well. You know, I actually like him. I think he was brilliant at Leeds. You talk about not throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Are people forgetting that? Because, you know, Tuesday night was a really good away performance. If we'd played like that yesterday, we might have got something, but you know, we didn't. I just think the point is that these are good players. You know, they really are good players, and they're not just wedded to one style of play. I think it's something people keep talking about. Maybe because we've already hit 40 points. Now people have kind of got one eye on the summer and next season, and maybe what we can change. But I think it's probably fair to assume that after staying up, the next stage in our progression will be to become a little bit more expansive and, you know, a bit more creative, and we'll bring in a better quality of player than probably was available to us last summer. I mean, we signed some cracking players, but after you've established yourself and you've proven to players that actually you're a really good club to sign for, there's a better quality available to you again. So, all these things have got to be factored in. But right now, I think we've got a cracking squad. Can I just make this point as well, by the way, before we move on slightly? I'm not, again, I don't want to make excuses, and this certainly isn't an excuse, but it's perhaps, it gives you some understanding, I guess, of why we weren't as coherent as we would have liked. But we had basically a full 11 of players missing, of players who probably would have played. And that does upset your rhythm. I think the biggest misses on Sunday were probably Hume and Siddiqui, because they've got an aggression and a when it comes to tempo and things, I was talking about people taking risks and things. Well, in a very different sense, Trey Hume, if he thinks, there's that quote, isn't there, from Roy Keane, where he's like, sometimes he would just go around and kick somebody to make himself feel better. Hume's got a bit of that about him, hasn't he? And that was what was missing. We were just missing that little bit of aggression. We were letting Port Vale bully us. And I think when you've got players like Hume and Siddiqui in your team, there's a little bit more of that about your all-round game, and we were missing them in particular. So it all builds into the performance we got eventually. You know what I mean? I know the original question you asked was about Angulo, but I think it all connects in some way. Like, the lack of aggression out wide, the lack of belief and leadership and things like that. There were a lot of players missing who would have given us that. So I can, to a degree, understand it, even though I'm not making excuses, because regardless of that fact, the team we put out should have beat Port Vale. So, yeah, but with Angulo, I think he's going to need time and patience, isn't he? He's only a young lad, and he played really well on Tuesday, so let's not forget that.
Yeah. And Andrew, I'm going to caveat all of this by, if anyone wants to know what I think, they can go and read Monday's editorial, because I'm going to play devil's advocate a little bit and be a prick like I normally am. Apologies, Andrew. But I'm going to build off a question that's come in from John Ridley, because he asks, are we able to progress with Régis, as we seem to play very one-dimensional and it's very rare to be on the front foot? He says, when we play it this way, we are hoping to get and take the one chance we can hope that we can see the game out. Now, I'm going to look at that Port Vale performance, and Gav's already mentioned that chance that Mayenda had in the first couple of minutes. That was cleared off the line. Diarra had one cleared off the line, start of the second half. I think we had a couple of headers that could have easily went in. Ballard had one that was tipped over well. I think Angulo had one at the back post that was tipped over. We had chances. Now, I'm going to put it to you, Andrew, that people have really gone to town on this performance against Port Vale, and rightly so. But in the way that we played, was it that much different to how we've approached most games this season? But the fact that one of those chances has gone in and we've had something to defend.
I think we were a little more passive. There was a bit of needle missing from us. But yeah, that's in general terms, that's not a ridiculous point. It is funny because after the game, I'm kind of thinking, well, we've barely laid a glove on Port Vale, and we never threw the kitchen sink at them. But then, like you say, when you list those individual moments, we did have a canny few presentable openings at them. I think the Angulo one, would that have been scrapped? I think
no. There's another one. There was a header where Rig crossed it to the back post where he headed it, and the keeper saved it, went out for a corner, and then there was the offside one, which he should have really put in the back of the net. If we're honest.
Yes, and there was other ones. I seem to think Diarra put the ball across the goal in the.
I thought that was a disgrace. How no Sunderland players were busting a gut to get at that, because Diarra did brilliantly down that right hand side.
That was one of his better moments. No, it's a fair point. You're dead right in that. Had that Mayenda header gone over the line, it's a completely different game, and nobody's questioning the tactics, or did we have the right attitude. It's just football, isn't it? And like you said earlier, I don't know why I'm surprised with myself, and I don't know why I feel let down, because it always bloody happens, man, doesn't it? This is just This is just typical Sunderland. What I will say, though, is another typical Sunderland thing. Everybody's now talking about its season over. I don't see that. As long as we can shake this off quickly and get this out of our heads, I hope this doesn't now turn into an end of season where it just drifts by. I really hope we move on from this sharpish and just write it off as a bad day where a whole load of different circumstances just contributed to a one-off.
Yeah. Well, actually, I just want to put that to you as well, Gav, because I want your feelings on that, because we had a few questions along a similar lines. Tenchi Lad said not being knee-jerking, but we look toothless going forward. Granted, we had injuries and a stubborn opponent, but real need to freshen up at how we are more creative and improve our goal output. Paul Rackstraw says, asks something along the similar lines, where he says there's no excuse for not creating chances against Port Vale. We've just rattled a few chances that we had there, Gav. And Sunderland, if you go back through any game this season, I don't think there's been a game where we've created chance after chance after chance, and we've been peppering the goal with shots and crosses every 30 seconds into the box, where it's, we're building up loads of pressure and for 90 minutes. And you look at the Oxford performance in the last round, and I really don't think that the performance, and I think Andrew's right to say, yes, okay, it was a little bit more passive potentially, but was it that different to how we really play most weeks when, talking about the final third and how we try and break sides down?
No, it wasn't. But that's a worry because you're playing a lot lower placed opposition than in the Premier League. I think even though they're set up defensively, we're talking about the team who are bottom of League One. So an expensively assembled Premier League team should be able to find a way through that, and we just couldn't. And I think, I just think it comes back to what I said before about players having gumption and taking initiative and being like, I'm just going to shoot and have a go. Because we're not saying that the shots are going to fly in from 25 yards into the top corner, but the keeper might deflect it and parry it into someone's path, or it might hit the post and come out to someone, or a defender might block it and it might be a scrap in the box and you might get another chance. Like, we're not talking about things that are really extravagant here. We're talking about things that any football team at any level can do, and that's just turn a game on its head by being very basic and just having a shot. Like, I'm pretty sure the lads in training practice shooting from range, so why don't they do it in games? Have a go. Try and curl one in from 25 yards. The keeper might save it and you might look daft. You might put it in Rose Head. I would rather try that than overplay and overthink it. There was I'm repeating myself here, but I just felt like the game plan we overthought. Like, it was one of them where your style in Premier League football is very, very different to your style in a game like this. This was a very unique game with unique circumstances. We were playing a team that had nothing to lose. Everybody thought was going to get beat on a pitch that is awful to play on. So just use a bit of initiative. And if you do that, your individual quality will shine through, because we've got players who can ping them in from 25 yards. Talby did it against Burnley. I saw Enzo Lafayette do it last season at home. I think, was it Millwall at home last season when Enzo bent one in? So we can do it, but why weren't we showing it in this game? And I think it's probably because they're taught to play in a certain way, play at 5 yards to somebody, work through teams. And we just needed somebody with a bit of leadership to say, right, let's pack that in. We're going to get beat if we keep playing like this. Let's start peppering the goal. Let's start putting crosses into dangerous areas. We just didn't do it enough. When we did start doing it, it was when Ballard went forward. But by that point, it was the 85th minute. And you're going, why did we not do this 10, 15 minutes ago? Why did we not chuck one of the young strikers on and just flood the box with crosses? Because we could have, because the longer the game went on, Port Vale would have kept retreating, they would kept dropping back, and hey, we might have got caught on the break and they might have scored another goal. But I would rather that than go out the way we did, which was in added time. I was watching the lads knock it around the back four, and I'm going, what am I watching here? Just shoot. Just have a go. You're going to go out the cup. You know what I mean? It's, I don't think these are things that I'm suggesting that are particularly outrageous. These are really, really basic things, and yeah, that's why we're out the cup, because nobody took initiative.
Yeah, and actually, I don't think we had a shot for the last 15 minutes of the game, to be honest.
There was a few flick-ons, wasn't there? But there was nothing. I don't think the keeper was made to do anything outrageous, was he?
No, not at all. And actually, I'll just point you in the direction of Arsenal at Mansfield on Saturday, because actually they were really struggling, and Mansfield were the better side for most of that game. Eze came on, smashed one in from the edge of the box. Arsenal go through.
It's not because Eze is a player who does that every week or anything. It's just somebody who's actually got quality going, this isn't working, I'm just going to shoot.
Yeah.
Like, why did none of our players do that? I would love to sit them down and ask. I would love to sit and go, why did none of you think with 10, 15 minutes to go, if we don't pull our fingers out a bit here, we're going to get beat? I will just keep repeating things. Like, is that an instruction from the side? Maybe, but I would be shocked, because even really good coaches must be able to admit when the game plan's not working and saying, actually, bollocks, let's just go for this. Like, pepper the box with shots and crosses and just make that goalkeeper make a mistake or get some more set plays. Or like, it just felt like we weren't even trying to do it. That's the really annoying thing. If we'd sat here after a game and after this game, we got beat 1-0, but for 15 minutes at the end of the game, we absolutely peppered their goal. We'd have been sat here going, actually, you know what it is? Port Vale defended brilliantly. Fair enough. Sometimes this shit happens in football. We'd have still been lamenting the mistakes that led to their goal, but at the same time, we'd have been caveating that by going, you know what it is? Just wasn't our day. Whereas in this game, we're all frustrated because we know we can do better and we didn't. And that is why I'm still annoyed now, because if we'd just done that for 15, 20 minutes, we'd be in the next round, I think. And it wasn't, and I've said this repeatedly, and I've said this to people when I've been talking about the game, Port Vale didn't even play well. It's not like they made us fight for it and battle for it. They didn't even play well. It was really weak and limp from us.
Yeah. Well, just to give them a little bit of credit, they did make sure with the first every ball. I mean, I'm not saying they had to put in a huge amount of effort to do that, but they were first.
Yeah, but it wasn't like some of the performances we've seen from our defenders where like Ballard and Alderete are like literally, it's like stopping bullets in it. They're like throwing themselves in front of everything and stopping the goal from being peppered, and it's save after save by Ruthless or whoever. There was none of that. Like, their goalkeeper had a couple of things to do, but it wasn't anything difficult.
Elbow didn't have a save to make, really.
Yeah, so like it was so easy for them at both ends of the pitch. Just it's why we're still going to. I reckon we'll still be talking about this for years. It's going to go down the same way the Bradford one under Poya went down, where same kind of game, same feeling, lower league team, poor pitch. Yet we came away and we're like, Sunderland just didn't even try. And that, I feel like we'll be talking about this in another 10 years, probably, when we lose to another lower league team in the cup, and it's all what ifs. You know, Sunderland could have went to the quarterfinals of the semis, and they didn't because they didn't turn up against a League One team. We've seen it loads of times in the past, and it never gets any easier to accept, does it?
Yeah, another Sunderland what if, who would have thought, eh? But just in case you two thought the questions had been far too easy so far, we've got a couple here that might test you a little bit, or at least get you to fall on one side or the other, because we've got two questions that are coming in. I'm going to start with you, Andrew. We've got one from Pricey and Matty. Pricey asks, Régis Le Bris, is he or will he be allowed to be the man to kick on and take us to the next level? And Matty asks, will Régis Le Bris be in charge next season? And I'll start with you, Andrew.
Well, I think my answers to this are perhaps slightly different to what they would have been a few weeks earlier. If he's not manager next season, it won't, though, be because the club are unhappy with him, or there's been some sort of, like, you know, when the papers do like a sensational sacking type story. It'll be because the club have felt behind the scenes that he's done his job, which was get us promoted and keep us in the top division, and that there's time for somebody else to move us on. They tried doing that with Mowbray. I always forget the fella's name, but there was absolute uproar when it was suggested Mowbray would get moved on.
Farioli, yeah.
So I wouldn't be too surprised if Le Bris isn't here long term, but that's not me calling for his head or anything. I personally think he has done enough to now see what he can do. We've ticked off those two things. We've got us in the Premier League. We now look established. So if in the summer there is a bit of strengthening, and if there is a feeling to see, can we be a bit more expansive? I think he's done enough to deserve that opportunity to show whether he's capable of that. Because we don't know. We've seen him do 2 very difficult jobs at Sunderland so far. He's going to go down as certainly one of our best post-war managers. I mean, who was the last manager who had two full years in charge? Bruce, maybe? So,
Don't even think he got 2 full years, did he?
Possibly not, but that's the time frame we're talking about for, like, Le Bris is by far and away the best we've had in a long time. So, yeah, it would be harsh on him if he wasn't given that opportunity to show whether he can take the next step. I wouldn't be flabbergasted if the club felt differently. If he does go, I'll have all the time and respect for him and wish him all the best. And certainly, at this point, I'm not Le Bris out or anything anywhere near the types of comments I saw some people saying last night. Because there were people saying we've got to get rid of him. I think that's a bit reactionary for me at the moment.
Yeah, and you look at his time at Sunderland, Gav, and he was asked to take us up and keep us up in the Premier League, and he's done exactly that.
Yeah.
And with 9 games to go, I'm not sure Régis Le Bris could have done any more other than win the championship title rather than go up through the playoffs and be in the Champions League place. Go on, Andrew. Do you want to add to that?
So, yeah, I will just point out, I'm looking at the table here. We are currently 11th with 40 points. We could still qualify for Europe and this be our greatest ever, certainly stadium of light season. But it would be only our 3rd or 4th top 10 finish since the 50s. So, to be expecting much more of Le Bris at this point does seem a bit harsh.
Well, there you go, Gav. Andrew finished, I think, the sentence I was going to say pretty much. But basically that, what more do people want from him? Because people are asking, will he still be in charge? And I suppose, does that come from people being kind of having a knee-jerk reaction to that one result? Or is that people thinking about how ruthless this Sunderland ownership have been in the past?
Yeah, I was about to say, I think you can separate this argument out into 2 things. So if the question is purely, is there a theoretical scenario where in the summer they replace him? Yeah, there is. We were asked a question similar to this on a Q&A a few weeks ago, and I said yeah, because I would never rule anything out because they're ruthless. They've shown this. They've got rid of last season's captain is gone. They got rid of Christian Speakman. There's other examples, but you get my point. They are very ruthless. So could I foresee a situation where in the summer they move on to somebody else? Absolutely. I could say that because they've got it in their makeup to do that. However, do I want Régis Le Bris to go anywhere? Absolutely not. He's done a phenomenal job at Sunderland. And I can't believe that there are Sunderland fans who would happily move him along. And I know when we did the pod with Tom White, Tom kind of dismissed it when I suggested people would want rid of Régis Le Bris. He kind of just said they're just trolls on Twitter, really. And I get what he's saying. A lot of it is that, but there will genuinely be people who are pissed off to the extent they would get rid of him. And I just think it's ridiculous when you take everything into account of what he's done. Why would anybody want rid of a manager who's achieved what he's achieved and given us what he's given us? And it's always the same when we get beat. It's always the same. We want heroes and villains. People want somebody to blame. People want scapegoats. It was Mundell after one game. It's Le Bris after this game. It was Hume after another game. It'll be O'Nien at some point. It has been in the past. People just want somebody to point at and go, it's your fault. It's your fault that we lost this game. It's one game of football. One game of football. We're not happy about it. I'm not sitting here and saying I'm all right with going out the cup. I'm sure I've said enough on this pod already to suggest that or show people that I clearly don't feel happy about it. But you've got to have perspective. And you were preaching this on the reaction pod, Chris, which I'm amazed by the way, because had I been on at full time after the game, I think I would have probably been calling for the death of everybody, but I wasn't. So, but you did really well in being pretty composed by the end of that pod, and I think we need a bit more of that. We need a bit more perspective, and I think when you think about how much change Régis Le Bris has in the bank, he's got a lot, because he got a team who, let's not forget this, he got a team which finished 16th in the Championship, promoted to the Premier League at the first time of asking. There wasn't loads of major additions last season. You could, Lefay, Isidore, yeah, fair enough, but we had a handful of players come in. It was largely the same squad that we had the season before, and he got us promoted, and then he's followed that up with a unbelievable season. We've beat Newcastle. We're challenging for the top half of the Premier League. We could well finish in a European place, but even if we don't, he's still had an amazing season. With 9 games to go, we've hit 40 points, the target that we set at the start. So why anybody would want rid of that manager is beyond me. I think short-termism is a big problem in football. It's a plague. And I think it's probably something we've become used to as Sunderland fans, particularly in the previous era in the Premier League under Ellis Short, where every season we were looking for some saviour to come in and change things. And that dopamine hit that you get from changing a manager, it only lasts for so long. Eventually it goes to shit and you're looking for the next big fix. So for me, I want to see Régis Le Bris. I want to see him in charge of Sunderland for 10, 15 years. I want in my lifetime for the club to have a manager who just oversees an entire project and sees it through. And at the minute, we're 2 years in under this guy. And if you lay it out all in front of you and look at what he's achieved since he come through the door, it's resoundingly positive. So anybody who thinks that the right thing to do would be to move on from him, I don't understand your thinking. You're welcome to your opinion, and you might well turn out to be right, but I don't get it. At this stage, given what we've achieved, why you would want rid of that man is beyond me.
Yeah, we're in a fantastic position, and Andrew, you mentioned it earlier. We've got Brighton coming up next, and I think the fans are expecting a big reaction, especially returning back to the Stadium of Light for the first time actually since we took on Fulham towards the end of February. So not only have we got the Port Vale performance to go into the mix, but actually we need to kind of get one back for the fans in terms of losing those 2 successive home games. So everybody's looking forward to the Brighton game. And then, of course, we've got Newcastle. But you were talking about the table as well. There's a lot. I mean, Gav talked about, my reaction on the reaction pod straight after the final whistle. I'm loving this season. And I just saw the Port Vale game as a blip within a year or 18 months or whatever that we're probably never going to forget as Sunderland fans. And we've got a lot going for us, so that we're playing out the rest of this season, haven't we?
Exactly. It is possible for 2 different things to be true. It is possible to say, yeah, it wasn't good enough against Port Vale, but that doesn't mean everything else has just gone to absolute shit, basically, because some people are going on like that. Yeah, the table to me looks promising. When was the last time we looked at a table that had Sunderland in such a comfortable position in the top flight? It's going to be, I don't know, early days under the Niall Quinn takeover, perhaps. Maybe going again back to the Steve Bruce era. So, you're not going to go through a season supporting Sunderland and not have disappointing days, but the overall trajectory is good. The Premier League looks good. And if anybody is feeling down in the dumps and can't shake themselves, there's a message going around, isn't there, on social media comparing our progress in these last few years since that of our nearest and dearest up the road. I don't know if either of you've seen that.
No.
Somebody's tracked that basically since the day of their takeover, where they were and where we were like just drifting along in League One. And now we are a Premier League team who were annoyed because we haven't got to the quarterfinals and we think we should be doing better. It's not bad, is it? there's plenty still to play for. Things are shaping up. There's plenty of teams in the Premier League who'll be looking at us being jealous. There's teams who didn't progress as far as us as we did in the cup, wishing they'd won a couple of rounds. So, yeah, I fully get the annoyance and the frustration, but wider term, it's a good time to be a Sunderland fan, really.
Yeah, absolutely. 40 points with 9 games left, 5 home games. We've still got visits from Chelsea, Man United and Spurs to look forward to, as well as this game against Brighton. And, of course, we've got a trip to the visitors in a couple of weeks, I think. So a lot to look forward to for the rest of the season. So it just leaves me to say thank you very much, gentlemen, for putting it all into context. Fantastic, as always. And we'll have loads of build-up this week, Gav, to the Brighton game.
We will indeed. I think we've got on this week tomorrow. I mistakenly said on the pod with Tom White at the end there that would be out today. Totally forgot that we had a Q&A penciled in. Also coming up this week, we've got Dom Shaw from the Northern Net will join us for a bit of a chat. And then, yeah, we'll be building up to Brighton. Hopefully get a Brighton fan on with us and the match day preview. And then afterwards, we'll be back for a pubcast because it's a home game. So any excuse to get the lads in the pub for a pint afterwards, we will have it. And yeah, lots to come up, mate. As everybody knows, we are daily. We've just celebrated our 1-year anniversary as well, which we haven't mentioned on a pod yet. But I think it was on Friday or Saturday. I can't remember now.
Friday, I think.
Right,
maybe
yeah.
Saturday morning.
How the podcast turned 1. So yeah. I mean, it's been a good year for us to cover Sunderland off on this pod. 400 odd episodes of us basically just talking about how good we are. This today is one of the rare occasions where we haven't. So there you go. There's your perspective.
Yeah. I'm gonna put this last 18 months all down to us rebranding, by the way, and coming back with Haway the podcast.
Yep.
It wouldn't have happened otherwise. It was all down to us. But there you go. But anyway, thank you very much, gentlemen, and thanks again everyone for listening. Don't forget, we've got loads more discussion on the Roker Report website, and we'll be with you every day with pods, as we've just said. So look out for all of that. But from us, it's bye for now.
Sports Social Podcast Network, the biggest voices in sports. Let's take a look at some of the lineup. Under the cosh.
Anything you do different in management?
I'd probably get a better pitching Saipan.
Let's be having you.
I love the fact that he's chosen that moment to go, do you know what? Now I'm going to do it.
The England pod.
If he plays regular minutes this season for Manchester City, he will re-emerge as one of the best players that we've got.
All on Europe's biggest sport podcast network. Find your next favourite sport podcast. Search Sports Social Podcast Network and listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Verified comparison at content.sport-social.co.uk/comparison.